The night my daughter looked me straight in the eyes and said, "I don't need a mother." Something inside me didn't just break. It went silent. We were standing in my kitchen in Ohio, the same kitchen where I had packed her school lunches, waited up for her after prom, and cried alone after burying her father. And yet, there she was, Ashley Lawson, my only child, looking at me like I was a stranger she couldn't wait to forget. I remember reaching for her hand. She stepped back. That was the moment I knew I had already lost her. What I didn't know was how far she would fall before she ever thought of calling me again. If this story touches something in your heart, please take a second to like and subscribe. And I'd really love to hear from you. Have you ever had someone you love push you away like this? Tell me where you're listening from and what time it is there. I'm here reading every single comment. I used to believe that love, if it was strong enough, could fix anything. That belief carried me through the hardest years of my life, and ironically, it may have been the very thing that pushed my daughter away. My name is Patricia Lawson. I'm 62 years old, and for most of my life, I wore one title with pride, mother. But I didn't always wear it wisely. When my husband, Daniel Lawson, died, Ashley was only 10 years old. One moment, we were a family of 3, and the next, I was standing in a hospital hallway, holding a paper cup of cold coffee, being told I had to learn how to live without him. I didn't cry in front of Ashley. I told myself I had to be strong. "I've got you," I whispered to her that night as she slept beside me, clutching her father's old flannel shirt. "I'm not going anywhere." And I meant it. I just didn't realize that sometimes staying isn't the same as understanding. The years that followed were a blur of long shifts and longer nights. I worked as a nurse at St. Mary's Hospital, often picking up double shifts just to keep us afloat. Bills didn't stop because your heart was broken. I would leave before sunrise, coffee in one hand, guilt in the other. "Breakfast is in the fridge, sweetheart," I'd call out. Sometimes she'd answer, sometimes she wouldn't. At first, Ashley was quiet. Too quiet. She stopped talking about school, stopped mentioning her friends. She grew into this careful, independent little girl who never asked for anything. And I thought that meant I was doing something right. Looking back now, I see how wrong I was. I remember one night, Ashley must have been about 12. I came home early for once. I thought I'd surprise her. Instead, I found her sitting alone at the kitchen table doing homework in complete silence. No TV, no music, just silence. "You okay, honey?" I asked. She nodded without looking up. "Yeah, you want me to help you with that?" I got it. That was Ashley. Always I got it. At the time, I felt proud. Now I realize she stopped expecting me to be there. As she grew older, I started tightening my grip. Not because I didn't trust her, but because I was terrified of losing her too. I checked her homework. I monitored her grades. I asked about every friend, every plan, every decision. "Who are you going with? What time will you be back? Did you finish studying?" I thought I was protecting her. I thought that was what good mothers did, but I never asked the one question that mattered most. "How do you feel?" There was a boy once, her first boyfriend. She was 16. His name was Tyler. I didn't like him. Not because he was a bad kid, but because he made her smile in a way I couldn't control. "Mom, he's just a friend," she said, rolling her eyes. "Boys are never just friends at your age," I replied. I remember the look on her face that day. It wasn't anger. It was distance, like she had just taken one step further away from me. I grounded her that weekend, took her phone, told myself it was for her own good. Years later, I can still hear her voice muffled through her bedroom door. "You don't trust me." And I didn't answer, because deep down, she was right. By the time she graduated high school, Ashley had become everything I thought school. Ashley had become everything I thought I wanted. Responsible, focused, disciplined. She got into a good college in New York, studied finance, built a future I could only dream of. At her graduation, I sat in the audience clapping harder than anyone. That's my daughter, I wanted. Responsible, focused, disciplined. She got into a good college in New York, studied finance, built a future I could only dream of. At her graduation, I sat in the audience clapping harder than anyone. That's my daughter, I told the woman next to me. And it was true, but what I didn't say was this. I don't really know her anymore. After she moved to New York, things changed slowly at first. She used to call me every Sunday. Hey, Mom. Hey, baby. Did you eat? I don't really know her anymore. After she moved to New York, things changed slowly at first. She used to call me every Sunday. Hey, Mom. Hey, baby. Did you eat? We'd talk about her classes, her professors, the city. I lived for those calls. But then they got shorter, then less frequent. Then they started to feel like obligations. Yeah, everything's fine. Work's busy. I gotta go. Click. I told myself it was normal. She's just growing up, I said. But there was a part of me, quiet, stubborn, that refused to let go. So I held on tighter. I called more often, texted more, asked more questions. Where are you? Who are you with? Why didn't you answer earlier? I convinced myself I was staying connected. But what I was really doing was pushing her further away. The first time I heard about Ryan Carter, it wasn't from Ashley. It was from Facebook, a picture. There she was, my daughter smiling beside a man I had never seen before. Tall, confident, arm wrapped around her like he belonged there. I stared at that photo for a long time. Then I picked up the phone. Who's Ryan? I asked. There was a pause on the other end. Just someone I'm seeing. Why didn't you tell me? Because you'd react exactly like this. That sentence cut deeper than she probably realized. I'm your mother, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. I have a right to know. No, she replied quietly. You don't, Ma. That was the first time she ever said something like that to me, and I didn't handle it well. I asked too many questions. I made assumptions. I judged a man I had never met. And worst of all, I didn't listen. Looking back now, I see the pattern so clearly it hurts. Every time Ashley tried to create space, I filled it. Every time she tried to breathe, I tightened the air around her. I told myself it was love. But love, when it suffocates, stops feeling like love. The truth is, I was afraid. Afraid that if I let go even a little, I would lose her completely. I just didn't realize I was already halfway there, and I had no idea how much worse things were about to get. If you had asked me back then when I officially lost my daughter, I would have told you it was that night in my kitchen. But the truth is, I started losing Ashley long before she ever said those words. I just didn't want to see it. New York changed her. At least, that's what I told myself. She's in a different world now, I would say to anyone who asked. Big city, big career. And it was true. Ashley landed a job at a financial firm in Manhattan just 2 months after graduation. I remember how proud I felt when she called me. I got the job, Mom. I practically screamed into the phone. I knew you would. I always knew you would. I start Monday, she said. You're going to do amazing, sweetheart. Yeah, I hope so. There was something in her voice that day, a hesitation. I heard it, but I ignored it, because I wanted the moment to be perfect. At first the moment to be perfect. At first things felt normal. Better even. She called more often again, at least for a while. You wouldn't believe how fast everything moves here. She laughed once. You'll get used to it. I already am. Felt normal. Better even. She called more often again, at least for a while. You wouldn't believe how fast everything moves here. She laughed once. You'll get used to it. I already am. That should have made me happy. Instead, it made me uneasy, because Ashley had always needed time to adjust. But suddenly, she didn't. Or maybe she just stopped letting me see the parts where she struggled. Her life became something I watched from the outside. Filtered photos, short updates, carefully controlled conversations. Then came Ryan Carter. The first time I actually heard his name from her lips, not from a photo, was during a rushed phone call. I'm seeing someone, she said casually. Oh, I tried to sound calm. What's his name? Ryan? What does he do? He works in investments. How long have you known him? Mom, she sighed. It's not an interview. I'm just asking. I know, but her tone told me she didn't like it, and I didn't stop. Where did you meet him? At work. Is he older? By a few years. Does he treat you well? Yes. How do you know? Silence. That silence should have told me everything. Instead, I filled it. You need to be careful, Ashley. Men like that. Men like what? She snapped. Successful. Confident. They can be manipulative. You don't even know him. I don't need to. I've seen enough. That's the problem, Mom. She said, her voice suddenly sharp. You think you know everything. I'm trying to protect you. I don't need protection. There it was again. That line. The beginning of something I didn't yet understand. After that conversation, things shifted. Not all at once, but enough for me to feel it. Her calls became shorter again, then less frequent. Sometimes she wouldn't answer at all. I'd call twice, 3 times, then send a message. Are you okay? Hours later, I'd get a reply. Busy. Talk later. Later rarely came. One evening I tried calling her 3 times in a row. No answer. By the 4th call, she finally picked up. What she said. Not hi, Mom. Not, is everything okay? Just what? My chest tightened. I was worried. I said softly. I'm at dinner. With Ryan? Yes. Why didn't you just text me? Because I didn't think I needed to report my schedule. That word again. Report. Like I was some kind of authority she was trying to escape. I'm your mother, I said. And I'm 32, she replied. The line went quiet. I wanted to say something to fix it, but the words didn't come out right. Just be careful, I murmured. I am. I don't trust him. Well, I do. Click. That was the first time she hung up on me. I stared at my phone for a long time after that. It wasn't just what she said. It was how easily she said it. Like disconnecting from me didn't hurt her anymore. Weeks passed. Then months. I started learning about my daughter's life the same way strangers did. Through pictures. There was one photo I couldn't forget. Ashley standing in what looked like a high-end restaurant wearing a black dress I had never seen before. Ryan stood beside her, his hand resting on her waist. She looked different. Not unhappy, but not quite herself either. The smile didn't reach her eyes. I zoomed in on the picture. Something about his grip bothered me. Too firm, too possessive. I called her that night. No answer. I texted. Call me when you can. She replied the next morning. Busy day. Later. Later came 3 days after that. I saw your picture, I said, carefully. Oh. Yeah, you look nice, thank you. Pause. That dress is that new, yeah. It's beautiful. Thanks. Another pause. I took a breath. He had his arm around you pretty tight. Mom, I'm just saying. No, you're judging. I'm observing. You're assuming. I'm worried. I didn't ask you to be. There it was. That wall again. And this time, it felt higher. I'm your mother, Ashley. I'm always going to worry. Well, maybe that's the problem. That sentence stayed with me long after the call ended. Maybe that's the problem. I started replaying everything in my head. Every question. Every warning. Every moment I chose fear over trust. And for the first time, I wondered if I had created the distance I was so afraid of. But even then, I still believed one thing. That no matter how far Ashley drifted, she was safe. I thought Ryan was just someone I didn't like, someone who annoyed me, someone who didn't deserve her. I never imagined he might be someone who could destroy her. And by the time I realized that it would already be too late, I wish I could tell you that I learned my lesson after all those phone calls that I stepped back, gave Ashley space, and trusted her to live her life. But that wouldn't be the truth. The truth is, I got on a plane. I didn't tell her I was coming. I told myself it was a surprise. But deep down, I knew exactly what it was. Control. I remember sitting on that flight to New York, clutching my purse like it could steady my thoughts. She'll understand, I whispered to myself. I'm her mother. But something in my chest kept tightening. A quiet voice I didn't want to hear. What if she doesn't? When I arrived, I went straight to her apartment building. It was nicer than I expected. Glass doors, a doorman, polished floors that reflected everything. I felt out of place. I'm here to see Ashley Lawson, I told the man at the front desk. He looked at me politely. Do you have an appointment? I'm her mother. He hesitated, then picked up the phone. Ms. Lawson? There's someone here to see you, Patricia Lawson. Silence. I could hear my own heartbeat. Then, send her up. The elevator ride felt longer than the flight. When the doors opened, I saw her standing there. Ashley, my daughter. For a moment, everything else disappeared. Mom, she said, confused. I smiled, trying to hide my nerves. Surprise. She didn't smile back. What are you doing here? I wanted to see you. You could have called. Mom, she said, confused. I smiled, trying to hide my nerves. Surprise. She didn't smile back. What are you doing here? I wanted to see you. You could have called. I thought this would be nicer. Her expression hardened just a little. It's not a good time. That should have been my cue to leave. But I stepped forward instead. I already came all this way. She exhaled sharply, then stepped aside. Fine. Come in. The apartment was beautiful. Modern, clean, expensive. It didn't feel like her. Or maybe it didn't feel like the version of her I remembered. Nice place, I said. Thanks. There was tension in the air. Thick, unspoken. I set my purse down slowly. I didn't mean to catch you off guard. You did, she replied. I miss you. That made her pause, just for a second. Then she looked away. I've been busy, I know, but you don't call like you used to. I'm not a kid anymore, Mom. I know that. Do you? Her eyes met mine then, and there it was again. That distance. Like she was already halfway out the door. Before I could respond, I heard a voice from the hallway. Hey, Ash, who's here? He walked into the room like he owned it. Ryan Carter. Tall, clean-cut, confident. And the moment his eyes landed on me, something inside me tightened. "Ryan," Ashley said quickly. "This is my mom." He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Mrs. Lawson," he said, extending his hand. I shook it.
His grip was firm. Too firm. "Nice to finally meet you," he added. "Likewise," I replied, but it wasn't true. Not really. I studied him carefully, the way he stood close to Ashley, the way his hand rested on her lower back. Subtle, but intentional. "How long are you staying?" he asked. "I haven't decided yet," I said. Ashley shot me a look. That look said everything. "You're not staying." "Well," Ryan said casually, "we have plans tonight. I can come with you," I offered. Ashley froze. Ryan smiled again. "Actually, it's more of a work thing." "I understand work," I said. "I won't be in the way." Ashley stepped in quickly. "Mom, no, it's not appropriate." There it was, a line, drawn clearly. "I just got here," I said softly, "and I didn't ask you to come." The words hit harder than I expected. Ryan stayed quiet, watching, always watching. "I just wanted to spend time with you," I said. "We can later," she replied, but her voice lacked conviction. Something about that moment felt wrong. Not just the tension, something deeper. Like Ashley wasn't entirely free in her own space. I turned to Ryan. "What exactly do you do in investments?" I asked. Ashley stiffened. "Mom, it's okay," Ryan said smoothly. "I manage private portfolios. High risk," I asked. "High reward." "I see." He held my gaze. Unbothered, confident, too confident. "You must be very persuasive," I said. Ashley stepped forward. "Mom, stop. I'm just having a conversation." "No, you're interrogating him. I'm asking questions. You always do." That word again. Always. "You don't trust anyone I choose," she continued. "That's not true. It is. I trust you." "No, you don't," she snapped. "You never have." Silence filled the room. Ryan didn't move. He just stood there, observing. Like this was exactly what he expected. "What is that supposed to mean?" I asked quietly. "It means," Ashley said, her voice shaking, "now that you've spent my entire life trying to control me. That's not fair. It's the truth. I was protecting you. I didn't need protection." Her voice rose, sharp, emotional, real. "You checked everything I did," she continued. "My friends, my choices, my life. I was being a mother. You were suffocating me." The word hit me like a slap. Suffocating. "I did everything for you," I whispered. "I didn't ask you to." That sentence, that one sentence broke something in me. "I gave up everything after your father died," I said, my voice trembling. "Everything, I know," she replied, softer now. "And I'm grateful." "Then why does it feel like you're pushing me away?" "Because I need space," she cried. "Because I need to breathe." The room went quiet again. Ryan finally spoke. "Maybe we should all just calm down. This isn't your conversation," I cut in. Ashley turned on me instantly. "Don't talk to him like that. I'm your mother, and he's my partner." That word, partner, final, definite. I looked at her, really looked at her, and for the first time, I saw it clearly. She wasn't just choosing him. She was choosing a life without me. "If you walk out that door tonight with him," I said slowly, "don't expect me to just sit here and pretend everything is fine.
Ashley stared at me, and then she said it. Cold, calm, final. I don't need a mother. The words echoed in the room. Ryan didn't react. He didn't need to, because he had already won. Ashley grabbed her coat. Come on, Ryan. He followed her without hesitation. At the door, she paused for just a second. I thought maybe she would turn back. Maybe she would say something. Anything. But she didn't. The door closed, and just like that, I was alone, standing in a place that belonged to my daughter, but no longer had a place for me. And that was the moment I realized I hadn't just lost her. I had pushed her right into someone else's hands. I didn't leave her apartment right away. I don't know why. Maybe I was still hoping the door would open again, that Ashley would walk back in eyes full of regret and say, Mom, I didn't mean that. But the door stayed closed, and the silence got louder. I sat down slowly on her couch, staring at the space where she had been standing just minutes before. I don't need a mother. The words kept replaying in my head, over and over, until they stopped sounding like anger and started sounding like truth. I looked around her apartment again. Everything was neat, perfect, controlled, just like I had raised her to be. And suddenly, I saw it differently. Not as success, but as distance. I stood up and walked into the kitchen, opened the fridge, barely anything inside, a bottle of wine, takeout containers, no signs of a home, just a place to exist. She's not okay, I whispered to myself. But then another thought followed right behind it. She doesn't want you here. That was the part I couldn't ignore anymore. I grabbed my purse and left. I didn't call her, didn't text, didn't leave a note. For the first time in her life, I walked away. The flight back to Ohio felt different, quieter, heavier. I kept replaying everything I had said, every question, every judgment, every moment I chose to push instead of listen. I did everything for you. The words I had thrown at her now sounded selfish. Like love had come with conditions, like sacrifice had become a weapon. When I got home, the house felt hollow. It had always been quiet since Ashley moved out. But this was different. This was final. I walked into the kitchen and stood there for a long time. Same table, same chair, same memories. But no Ashley, and maybe no chance of getting her back. Days turned into weeks, weeks into months, and I didn't hear from her. At first, I tried. I really did. I sent a message the day after I got home. I made it back safely. No response. 2 days later. I'm sorry for how things went. Nothing. A week later, I love you. Still nothing. Each message felt like dropping a stone into a well with no bottom. No echo. No sign of anything coming back. After a while, I stopped. Not because I didn't care, but because I finally understood something I had refused to accept before. You can't force someone to stay in your life, not even your own child. So I stepped back, completely. I went to work, came home, watched TV I didn't really care about, cooked meals for one, and tried to learn how to live with the silence. But the silence had a way of bringing thoughts I didn't want. I started seeing things differently. Moments I used to feel proud of now felt heavy, like the time I grounded her for seeing Tyler, or the nights I checked her phone while she slept, or the way I questioned every decision she made. I was protecting her, I would tell myself. But another voice would answer, No, you were controlling her. That word again, control. I used to hate that word. Now I couldn't escape it.
One afternoon, I ran into an old coworker at the grocery store. Linda Brooks. We used to work together at the hospital years ago. "Patricia," she said, surprised. "It's been forever." "Linda?" I smiled politely. "How are you?" "I'm good. Still working too much." She laughed. "Some things never change." We talked for a few minutes, small talk, safe topics, until she asked the question I had been avoiding. "How's Ashley?" My chest tightened. "She's busy. In New York." "That's right. Finance right?" "Yes." "She must be doing well. I hope so." Linda hesitated, just for a second, but I noticed. "What is it?" I asked. She shifted her weight. "Well, I'm not sure if I should say anything." My stomach dropped. "Say what I have a niece who works in the same industry, in New York, and..." She mentioned a name recently. Ashley Lawson. My heart started beating faster. What did she say? Linda looked uncomfortable. She didn't go into detail, but she said your daughter's been under a lot of pressure. "Pressure how?" "Work stuff. Long hours. Stress. That's normal in that field." "Yes, but..." Linda paused. She also mentioned something about a guy. Ryan. I felt it immediately. What about him? I don't know much. Just that people have noticed he's always around, very involved in her business decisions. That didn't sit right. Involved how? Like maybe too involved. A cold feeling spread through my chest. "What does that mean?" Linda sighed. "Patricia, I don't want to overstep. It could be nothing." "No," I said firmly. "Tell me." She said your daughter has been making some risky financial moves, investments that don't quite add up. I felt the ground shift under me. That doesn't sound like Ashley. I know. That's why it stood out. And this guy Ryan, he's part of it. That's what it sounded like. Silence fell between us. Everything inside me was screaming to act, to call Ashley, to demand answers, to fix it. But then I remembered her voice. "I don't need a mother." I swallowed hard. "Thank you for telling me," I said quietly. "Are you going to call her?" I shook my head slowly. "I don't think she'd answer." Linda frowned. "She's still your daughter." "I know. Then you don't just sit back if something's wrong." Her words hit me, because that's exactly what I had always done. Stepped in, took over, controlled. But this time, I didn't know what the right choice was. Interfere and risk losing her forever. Or stay silent and risk something worse. That night, I sat alone in my living room staring at my phone. Ashley's contact was still there. I hadn't deleted it. I could never delete it. My finger hovered over her name. Just one call. That's all it would take. But what would I say? Would she answer? Would she hang up again? Or worse, would she not answer at all? I put the phone down, then picked it up again, then put it down. Over and over, until exhaustion finally won. I leaned back and closed my eyes. "I hope you're okay," I whispered into the empty room. But deep down, for the first time, I wasn't sure she was. And this time, I didn't know if I was allowed to save her. I didn't sleep much that night, or the next, or the one after that. Once you start worrying about your child, really worrying, it doesn't just go away because you decide to respect boundaries. It sits with you. It grows. It whispers things you don't want to hear. What if she's not safe? What if she's in trouble? What if this time you don't act soon enough? But every time I reached for my phone, I stopped. Because another voice would cut in. "She told you she doesn't need you." So I stayed still. And it was the hardest thing I've ever done.
A week later, I saw her name again. Not on my phone, on my laptop. I had made a habit, one I wasn't proud of checking her social media, just to see if she was okay. That morning, there was a new post, a photo of her at what looked like a corporate event. Formal dress, bright lights, expensive room. Ryan stood beside her again, always beside her. But something was different this time, her smile. It looked practiced, like she was trying to convince the world she was fine. I zoomed in on the image. Her eyes looked tired. Not just tired, drained. I leaned back in my chair. "She's not okay," I whispered again, but this time it felt heavier, more real. That same afternoon, I got another call. "Linda." "Hey," she said. "I didn't want to worry you, but I heard something else." My heart sank immediately. "What is it? She might be mixing personal and professional finances." I froze. That doesn't make sense. I know, but apparently Ryan is involved in some joint investments with her. How joint? Like shared accounts, shared decisions. A cold chill ran through me. Ashley was careful. Always had been. Almost too careful. "That's not like her," I said. "That's what my niece said too." I stood up and started pacing. "Do you know what kind of investments?" "No specifics. Just that they're aggressive." High risk, Ryan's voice echoed in my head. High risk, high reward. I clenched my jaw. This doesn't feel right. No, it doesn't. "Have you heard anything else?" Linda hesitated. "Just rumors." "What kind of rumors?" "That Ryan might have a pattern." My chest tightened. "What do you mean? Getting involved with women in finance, building trust, then benefiting from it." I stopped pacing. "Benefiting how?" She didn't answer right away. And that silence told me everything. "Linda," I said quietly. "Say it, financially." The word hit like a punch. "You're saying he uses them?" "I'm saying it's possible." I sat down slowly. My hands were shaking. That's not what Ashley would allow." "I know, but sometimes people don't see it when they're in it." I closed my eyes, and suddenly everything started connecting. The control, the isolation, the way Ashley had pulled away from everyone, including me, especially me, because I was the one person who might have seen through him, and he knew it. "He wanted me out of the picture," I whispered. "What?" "Nothing." But it wasn't nothing. It was everything. I hung up the phone and sat there in silence. My heart was racing. My mind was screaming, "Call her. Go to her. Do something." But my body stayed still, because I remembered her face, her voice. "I don't need a mother." I stood up and walked to the window, looked out at the quiet street. "I don't know what to do," I said out loud. And for the first time in my life, I felt like being her mother wasn't enough. That night, I tried something different. Instead of calling her, I wrote. Not a text, not a short message, a letter. I sat at my kitchen table just like I used to when she was a child helping her with homework. And I wrote, "Ashley, I'm not writing to ask you anything. I'm not writing to tell you what to do. I just want you to know I'm here. No questions, no judgment, just here. If you ever need me for anything, I will come, no matter what." I stared at the words for a long time. Then I folded the paper, put it in an envelope, and mailed it. It felt small, too small, like trying to stop a storm with a whisper. Days passed, then more days. No response. Not a call. Not a message. Nothing. And that's when the fear started changing. It wasn't just worry anymore. It was dread. Because silence doesn't always mean peace. Sometimes it means things are getting worse. 2 weeks later, I got confirmation. Not from Ashley. From the world around her. Another call from Linda. Her voice was more urgent this time. Patricia, something's wrong. My heart dropped instantly. What happened? My niece said Ashley hasn't been showing up to work consistently. What? She's missing meetings, missing deadlines. That's not possible. I know. But it's happening. I grabbed the edge of the table to steady myself. Is she sick? They don't know. What about Ryan? He's been speaking for her in meetings. That sentence sent a cold wave through my body. He's speaking for her. Yes. I felt something shift inside me. Something sharp, clear, dangerous. This wasn't just a bad relationship. This was control. Real control. He's taking over her life, I whispered. Patricia, you need to do something. The words hung in the air, and this time I didn't argue with them, because something deep inside me finally said what I had been avoiding. If I don't step in now, I might lose her for good. I walked to my phone, picked it up. My hands weren't shaking anymore. They were steady, focused, determined. I stared at her name, Ashley. And for the first time since that night, I wasn't afraid of being rejected, because this wasn't about pride anymore, or boundaries, or control. This was about saving my daughter, even if she hated me for it. I pressed call. The line started ringing, once, twice, 3 times. My heart pounded with every second. Then, the call went to voicemail. I closed my eyes, took a deep breath, and spoke. Ashley, it's Mom. My voice was calm, stronger than I expected. I'm not calling to argue. I'm not calling to control you. Pause. I'm calling because I'm scared. Another pause. If something is wrong, you don't have to go through it alone. I swallowed. I meant what I wrote in that letter. My voice softened. I'm still your mother, whether you need me or not. I ended the call, and for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel powerless, because I knew one thing now. No matter how far she pushed me away, I wasn't going to stop showing up. And somewhere deep inside, I had a feeling she was getting closer to a moment where she would finally need me. After that voicemail, I stopped waiting for an answer. Not because I didn't care, but because I finally understood something important. If Ashley was going to come back into my life, it wouldn't be because I kept calling. It would be because something inside her changed. And that thought terrified me. Because change doesn't always come gently. Sometimes it comes through pain. The next few days felt heavier than anything I had experienced before. Not silence anymore. Something else, like the calm before something breaks. I went through my routine, but nothing felt real. At work, I caught myself staring at the same chart for 10 minutes without reading a single word. Patricia, one of the younger nurses, said, "You okay?" I blinked. "Yes, just tired." "You sure?" I forced a smile. Just one of those weeks. But it wasn't just a week. It was something building, something I couldn't stop. That night, I checked Ashley's social media again. No new posts. That alone wasn't unusual, but something about it bothered me. Ashley always posted something, even if it was small. A photo, a quote, a sign that she was still there. Now, nothing. I opened her last photo again, the one from the event.
I stared at it longer this time. Not at Ryan. At her.
Her posture, her eyes, her hand. It was resting at her side, slightly curled. Tense. I leaned closer to the screen. Why didn't I see this before? I whispered. Because I hadn't been looking. Not really. I had been reacting, judging, fighting, but not seeing, and now I couldn't unsee it. The next morning, Linda called again. This time, her voice was urgent. Patricia, I just heard something else. My stomach dropped immediately. What now?
There's talk that Ashley might be in serious financial trouble. I gripped the phone tighter. How serious? Like accounts being drained, investments failing. That doesn't make sense, I said, but my voice lacked conviction. I know, but it's happening fast. What about her job? They're concerned. Concerned. That word didn't feel strong enough. What about Ryan? I asked. Linda hesitated. That's the strange part. What? He hasn't been around the office much either. A cold silence filled my chest. What does that mean? I don't know. But it doesn't sound good. No, it didn't. It sounded like the beginning of something worse. After the call ended, I sat there completely still. This was it. The moment I had been afraid of. The moment where staying quiet might cost everything. I stood up, walked straight to my bedroom, pulled out my suitcase. I didn't think, didn't hesitate. I just moved. Clothes, shoes, essentials. I packed like someone who knew exactly where they were going, even if they didn't know what they would find when they got there. As I zipped the suitcase, my phone buzzed. For a split second, my heart jumped. Ashley. But it wasn't her. It was a number I didn't recognize. I stared at it. Something told me to answer. Hello. Silence. Then, Mrs. Lawson. My breath caught. Yes. This is Megan. I work with Ashley. My heart started pounding. What's going on? She hesitated, then spoke quickly. I'm sorry to call you like this, but I didn't know who else to contact. What happened? It's Ashley. She hasn't been happened, it's Ashley. She hasn't been herself. I know. Tell me what's going on. She's been missing work, missing meetings, and when she does show up, she's distracted. Distracted how? Like she's scared. That word hit me hard. Scared. She's never like that herself. I know. Tell me what's going on. She's been missing work, missing meetings, and when she does show up, she's distracted. Distracted how? Like she's scared. That word hit me hard. Scared. She's never like that, Megan continued. She's always in control. Yes, I whispered. I know. And Ryan. My body went tense. What about him? He used to come in with her, sit in on meetings, speak for her. I know. But now he's gone. Gone completely. No one's seen him in days. A cold wave rushed through me. Did he say where he was going? No. What about Ashley? She won't talk about him. That didn't sound like Ashley. Not the daughter I knew. Unless she's protecting him, I said quietly. Or she's afraid, Megan replied. The silence that followed said everything. Mrs. Lawson, I don't want to overstep, but I think she needs help. My eyes filled with tears. I'm coming, I said. You are? Yes. Today. There was a pause, then a quiet sense of relief in her voice. Good. After the call ended, I stood there gripping my phone. My heart wasn't racing anymore. It was steady, focused, clear. This was no longer about guessing, or worrying, or waiting.
This was real. Ashley was in trouble, and she wasn't calling me, which meant she either couldn't or didn't think she could. And that thought broke something inside me. She still doesn't feel safe coming to me, I whispered. But there was no time to dwell on that. I grabbed my suitcase, called a cab, booked the first flight I could find, and within hours I was back on my way to New York. But this time, it felt different. The last time I came, I thought I was the one in control. The one who knew what was best. The one who could fix everything. This time, I knew I wasn't. This time, I was walking into something unknown. Something bigger than arguments, bigger than pride, bigger than my mistakes. And for the first time, I wasn't coming as someone who had all the answers. I was coming as a mother who was finally ready to listen. Even if what I heard broke me. As the plane lifted off the ground, I looked out the window. The city below grew smaller, quieter, distant. And all I could think was, please, be okay. But deep down, I already knew. She wasn't. And whatever I was about to face when I landed would change everything. By the time I landed in New York, I already knew this wasn't going to be a simple conversation. This wasn't going to be me knocking on her door and saying, let's talk. Something had already gone wrong, and I was late. That thought stayed with me the entire cab ride from the airport. Late. Late to listen. Late to understand. Late to see what was right in front of me all along. "Ma'am, we're here," the driver said. I looked up. Ashley's building. The same one I had stood in front of weeks ago. But this time, it felt colder. I stepped out, grabbed my suitcase, and walked inside. The same doorman was there. He recognized me. His expression shifted slightly. Concern. "Mrs. Lawson," he said. "You're back." "Yes," I replied quickly. "Is Ashley here?" He hesitated. "I haven't seen her in a couple of days." My heart dropped. "What do you mean? She hasn't come through the lobby. That doesn't make sense. Sometimes she uses the side entrance," he added quickly. "But it's been quiet. Too quiet. Can you let me up?" He nodded this time without asking questions. Of course. The elevator ride felt suffocating. Every second stretched longer than it should have. When the doors opened, I walked straight to her apartment. And for the first time, I was afraid to knock. I stood there, hand hovering in the air. What if she's not there? What if she is, but won't open the door? What if I knocked? No answer. I knocked again. Louder. "Ashley." "It's Mom." Silence. My chest tightened. I tried the handle. Locked. Of course it was locked. I stepped back, heart racing. Think. Think. Then I remembered something. The spare key. Months ago, she had given me one. For emergencies, she had said. I had almost thrown it away after that night, but I didn't. I reached into my purse, hands trembling, and pulled it out. "This counts," I whispered. I slid the key into the lock, turned it. The door opened, and the moment I stepped inside, I knew. Something was very wrong. The apartment didn't look the same. Not clean, not controlled. It looked abandoned. Papers scattered across the table, drawers half open, a glass on the floor shattered. I moved slowly, taking it all in. "Ashley!" I called out. No answer. I walked further in. The kitchen was worse. Bills, statements, documents, all spread out like someone had been trying to make sense of something and couldn't. I picked one up. My eyes scanned the numbers, and my stomach dropped.
Withdrawals. Large ones. Repeated. Account balances nearly empty. No, I whispered. I grabbed another paper. Investment reports. Losses. Huge losses. This wasn't just bad decisions. This was destruction. What did he do to you? I muttered. Then I heard something. A faint sound. From the bedroom. I froze. Ashley. No response. But I heard it again. A small movement. I rushed toward the door and pushed it open. And there she was, sitting on the floor, back against the bed, wrapped in one of Ryan's shirts. My daughter, but barely recognizable. Ashley, I breathed. She didn't look up right away, just sat there, staring at nothing, like she hadn't heard me. I stepped closer. It's me. Still nothing. My heart shattered. I knelt down in front of her. Ashley, look at me. Slowly, painfully slowly, she lifted her eyes. And when she saw me, something inside her broke. Mom, she whispered. That one word undid me. I reached for her. This time, she didn't pull away. She collapsed into my arms, crying. Not quietly, not controlled, completely. I didn't know what to do, she sobbed. I didn't know who to call. I held her tighter. I'm here, I said softly. I'm right here. I messed everything up, she cried. Everything? No, I whispered. We'll figure it out. But even as I said it, I knew this was bigger than I understood. Where is he? I asked gently. Her body tensed. Gone. When, 3 days ago? And he just left. She nodded against my shoulder. After he took everything. My breath caught. Everything. My savings, my investments, even the joint accounts. Her voice broke. He said it was temporary that he was moving the money, but then he disappeared. I finished. She pulled back slightly, tears streaming down her face. I trusted him. I know. I defended him. I pushed you away for him. I shook my head. That's not what matters right now. Yes, it is, she cried. I told you I didn't need you, and now... Her voice cracked. And now you're the only person I have. The words hung between us, heavy, painful, real. I swallowed hard, and for a moment I didn't know what to say. Not because I didn't care, but because this moment was everything. Everything we had lost. Everything we had broken. Everything we could still save. I gently wiped her tears. Listen to me, I said softly. She looked at me, really looked at me, for the first time in a long time. You don't have to go through this alone, I continued. Not now, not ever. She shook her head, guilt flooding her face. I don't deserve that. I took her face in my hands. You're my daughter, I said firmly. You don't have to earn that. She broke down again, and this time I let her. Because this wasn't just about money or betrayal. This was about everything she had been holding in, everything she had tried to handle on her own, everything she thought she had to carry without me. I was so scared to call you, she admitted between sobs. Why? Because I thought you'd say, I told you so. The words hit me harder than anything else. Because she wasn't wrong. That was exactly who I had been.
I closed my eyes briefly, then shook my head. No, I said quietly. Not this time. She looked at me uncertain. Not ever again, I added. Silence filled the room. But it wasn't the same silence as before. This one felt like something shifting, something beginning. I helped her up slowly. You haven't eaten, have you? She shook her head. Okay, I said gently. We're going to start there. She let out a small, tired laugh. You always start with food. It's what I know. I smiled softly. For the first time, she smiled back. Just a little, but it was real. And in that moment, I knew one thing for sure. She had finally called me. Not with her phone, not with words, but with everything she had left. And this time, I wasn't going to let her face it alone. That night, I didn't leave her side, not for a second. I sat on the edge of her bed while she slept, her breathing uneven, her face still marked with dried tears. Every now and then, she would stir, whisper something under her breath, and curl in on herself like she was trying to disappear. And every time, I reached out. I'm here, I would whisper. Even if she couldn't hear me, because maybe somewhere inside, she still needed to. Around 3 a.m., she woke up suddenly, gasping. Her eyes darted around the room before landing on me. Mom, she said, her voice small. I'm here, I replied softly. She sat up quickly, panic still in her eyes. I thought you left. I shook my head. Not this time. She stared at me for a long moment, like she was trying to decide if she could believe that. Then she nodded slowly and leaned back against the headboard. Silence filled the room. But it wasn't uncomfortable. It was fragile, like something new was trying to form. I didn't call you, she said finally. I know, I wanted to. I swallowed. Then why didn't you? She looked down at her hands. Because I was ashamed. The honesty in her voice cut deep. I kept hearing your voice in my head, she continued. Every warning, every question. I winced slightly. I thought if I called you, it would mean you were right. I let that sit for a moment. Then I said quietly, this isn't about being right. She shook her head. It felt like it. I took a deep breath. I'm sorry, I said. She looked up surprised. For what? For making you feel like you couldn't come to me unless everything was perfect. Her eyes softened. I did that, I added. Not you. She blinked like she hadn't expected that answer. You don't have to protect me from your mistakes. I continued. That's not how this works. She let out a shaky breath. I thought you'd be angry. I admitted, at first. She nodded slowly. But not anymore. Why? I looked at her carefully. Because I'm more afraid of losing you than I am of being right. That hit something inside her. I could see it. Her expression shifted. Not completely, but enough. She pulled her knees up to her chest. I don't even know where to start, she whispered. Start anywhere. She hesitated. Then the words came. He didn't just take the money. I felt my body tense. What else? He controlled everything she said. At first, it was small things, like what he'd suggest investments. Tell me which clients to prioritize, which risks were worth it. And you trusted him. She nodded. He made it sound like we were building something together. Her voice cracked. I thought
I thought we were partners. I stayed quiet, letting her talk. But then it changed. How he started questioning my decisions, saying I was too cautious, that I was holding us back. "That doesn't sound like you," I said, gently. "It wasn't," she replied, "but he made it feel like it was." She looked up at me. "Do you know what it's like to have someone slowly convince you that your instincts are wrong?" I paused, then nodded. "Yes." She frowned slightly. "You do." "I used to do that to you," I said honestly. Her eyes widened. "No." "Yes," I interrupted softly. "Maybe not the same way, but I questioned you, controlled you, made you doubt yourself." She went quiet. "I thought I was helping," I added. "But I see now. I was taking away your confidence." She stared at me for a long moment, then looked away. "I guess I was used to it," she said quietly. That hurt more than anything. Not because she was blaming me, but because she wasn't. She was just stating a fact. "And Ryan?" I asked carefully. "He did it better?" she said bitterly. "Smoother, kinder." That word, kinder, twisted something inside me. "Until he didn't," she added. "What happened?" She took a deep breath. "He started handling more of the money, said it would be easier, more efficient, and you let him. More efficient, and you let him." "Hot I was trusting him," she said. "I thought that's what you're supposed to do in a relationship." I nodded slowly. "And then the losses started," she continued. "At first small, then bigger." "Did you confront him hot I was trusting him?" she said. "I thought that's what you're supposed to do in a relationship." I nodded slowly. "And then the losses started," she continued. "At first small, then bigger." "Did you confront him?" "Yes, and he always had an answer. A plan, a reason why it would turn around. And you believed him." I wanted to. Her voice broke again. I didn't want to admit I was wrong. I reached for her hand. "That doesn't make you weak. It feels like it." "No," I said firmly. "It makes you human." She squeezed my hand tightly. I ignored the signs she whispered. The way he kept pushing me to move more money. The way he didn't want me talking to anyone else about it. My stomach tightened. "He isolated you." She nodded. "From my coworkers, my friends, even you." We both went quiet, because we both knew that part had worked. "I thought I was choosing him," she said. "But really, he was removing everyone else." The realization hung in the air. Heavy, painful, clear. "What about the last day?" I asked softly. Her body tensed again. "He came home late," she said. "Told me he needed access to everything. Said it was the final move, the one that would fix everything. And you gave it to him." She closed her eyes. "I gave him everything." I squeezed her hand. "And then I woke up the next morning, and he was gone." My chest tightened. No message, no call, nothing. She opened her eyes again, tears forming. Just empty accounts. Silence filled the room. Not the kind that waits for words, the kind that absorbs them. "I sat on the floor for hours," she said, "trying to understand what happened. And you didn't call anyone. I didn't know how." Her voice was barely a whisper now. I didn't even know who I was anymore. That was the part that scared me the most. Not the money, not the betrayal, but that. Losing yourself. I moved closer and wrapped my arm around her shoulders. "You're still here,"
I said softly. She leaned into me. But I don't feel like me. You will again. She shook her head slightly. How do you know? I smiled gently. Because you called me. She looked up at me. I didn't. Yes, you did, I said. You just didn't use your phone. She stared at me for a moment. Then, for the first time since I arrived, she let out a real breath. Not a sob, not a gasp, just a breath. And in that moment, I knew. This was where everything started to change. Not when she lost everything, not when he left, but right here, when she finally stopped trying to carry it alone. The next morning, reality hit harder than the night before. Pain is one thing when it's emotional, but when it becomes practical, measurable, undeniable, that's when it truly settles in. I stood in Ashley's kitchen holding a stack of papers, trying to piece together what had actually happened. Numbers, transactions, dates, each line told a story, and none of them were good. How much, I asked quietly. Ashley sat at the table, her eyes red, her voice drained. All of it. I looked up. Ashley. My savings, my investments. The accounts we shared, everything she said flatly. I swallowed hard. How much are we talking about? She hesitated, then whispered, almost everything I've built over the last 10 years. The room went still. 10 years, gone. Not lost in a bad decision, not tied up in a long-term investment. Gone. Okay, I said slowly, forcing myself to stay calm. We're going to figure this out. She let out a bitter laugh. You keep saying that, and I mean it. There's nothing to figure out, she snapped suddenly. He took it. It's gone. I didn't react to the tone, because I understood it. It wasn't anger at me. It was anger at herself. No, I said firmly. It's not over. She looked up at me, disbelief in her eyes. You don't understand. Then help me understand. She pushed a folder toward me. I've already talked to the bank. I opened it. Statements, reports, notes. He moved the money through multiple accounts. She continued. Different firms, offshore transfers. I felt my chest tighten. This wasn't random. This was planned. He knew exactly what he was doing. I said quietly. Yes. And you trusted him. She flinched. I know. Silence fell again. Then I asked the question I had been avoiding. Did you sign the contract? Question I had been avoiding. Did you sign anything? She froze. That told me everything. Ashley. I didn't think it mattered, she whispered. What did you sign? She reached into the folder and pulled out a document. I took it carefully, read the first few lines, and my stomach dropped. Authorization, full financial access. Temporary, it said, but the wording was anything but temporary. This gives him control, I said. I thought it was just for the investment. It's not. Her face went pale. I didn't read all of it. I closed my eyes briefly, then looked at her. Okay, listen to me. She shook her head, panic rising. No, you don't understand. No, I interrupted firmly. You listen to me. She stopped, because something in my voice had changed. This wasn't the same mother who questioned everything. This was someone else, someone focused, grounded. We are not going to panic, I said. Her breathing slowed slightly. We are not going to blame you, I continued. Tears filled her eyes, and we are not going to assume this is over. She stared at me, like she didn't recognize me. How can you be so calm? She asked. I'm not calm, I admitted. I'm choosing to be steady. There was a difference, and she could feel it. What do we do? She whispered. I took a breath. We start with a lawyer. She blinked. A lawyer? Yes. I can't afford one. You don't have to. She looked confused. I will, I said simply. Her expression shifted immediately. No. Yes. No, Mom, I can't. This isn't a loan, I said firmly. This is me helping my daughter. She shook her head, overwhelmed. I don't want to depend on you again. That sentence meant everything, because it told me exactly where her fear still lived. This isn't dependence, I said gently. This is support. She looked down. I don't know how to accept that. I know, I replied softly. That's something we'll figure out too, because it told me exactly where her fear still lived. This isn't dependence, I said gently. This is support. She looked down. I don't know how to accept that. I know, I replied softly. That's something we'll figure out too. Another silence, but this one felt like something opening. Not completely, but enough. I feel so stupid, she whispered. You're not. I should have seen it. You trusted someone you loved? That doesn't excuse it. No, I said. But it explains it. She looked at me again, searching. Why aren't you saying I told you so? She asked. I smiled sadly. Because I care more about what happens next than what already happened. Her eyes filled again, but this time the tears felt different, less like collapse, more like release. I stood up and grabbed my phone. I'm calling someone. Who? A lawyer I used to work with, back when your father was sick. She watched me carefully. You still know people like that? I'm older than you think, I said lightly. She almost smiled. Almost. The call didn't take long. David, it's Patricia Lawson. A pause, then recognition. Patricia, it's been years. I know. I need your help. My voice didn't shake, didn't hesitate, because this was something I could do. What kind of help? Financial fraud? Large scale. Another pause. I'm listening? I glanced at Ashley. She was watching me like I was the only stable thing left in her world. My daughter has been manipulated into giving full access to her accounts, I said. The individual has disappeared with the funds. Silence. Then, bring everything you have. We'll go through it together. Relief washed over me. Thank you. I hung up and turned back to Ashley. We have a meeting this afternoon. Her eyes widened. That fast? Yes. She looked overwhelmed. I don't even know what to say to him. You don't have to say anything yet, I said. You just have to show up. That was something she could do. I could see it in her face. Something small. Something possible. Okay, she said quietly. And for the first time since I arrived, she sounded like herself. Not the version shaped by fear. Not the one controlled by someone else. But the one I had always known. Still there. Still fighting. We spent the next few hours organizing everything. Documents, emails, messages. Each piece told a clearer story, and with every detail my anger grew. Not at Ashley. Never at her. At him. At Ryan. Because this wasn't just betrayal. This was calculated, deliberate, cruel. He knew what he was doing. I said again. Ashley nodded slowly. Yes, and he thought you wouldn't fight back. She looked at me, then shook her head. Not anymore. That was the moment I knew. This wasn't the end of her story. This was the turning point. The moment where everything she had lost started becoming something she could reclaim. And this time, she wasn't doing it alone. The lawyer's office was quieter than I expected. Not intimidating, not cold, just precise. Like a place where emotions were acknowledged, but not allowed to take control. Ashley sat beside me, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. I could feel the tension in her without even looking. "It's okay," I whispered. She nodded, but I knew it wasn't. A man in his late 50s stepped into the room, calm, observant, sharp eyes. "Patricia," he said warmly. "David." He shook my hand, then turned to Ashley. "You must be Ashley." She stood up quickly. "Yes." He nodded, then gestured toward the chairs. "Let's sit." We did, and just like that, the story began again. But this time, with facts, not emotions. "Start from the beginning," David said gently. Ashley hesitated. I felt her glance toward me, looking for reassurance. I gave her a small nod. "You can do this." She took a breath, and then she spoke. Not perfectly, not smoothly, but honestly. She told him everything. Ryan, the investments, the accounts, the documents she signed, the moment he disappeared. And as she spoke, I watched something happen. At first her voice trembled, her words stumbled, but slowly they steadied, because for the first time, she wasn't hiding. She wasn't defending. She wasn't pretending everything was under control. She was just telling the truth. When she finished, the room went quiet. David leaned back slightly, his expression thoughtful. "Okay," he said finally. That one word made Ashley tense again. "Oh, yay," she repeated, confused. "Yes," he said calmly. "This is serious, but it's not hopeless." I felt Ashley's body shift beside me. "What does that mean?" she asked. "It means," he continued, "that what happened to you is not just a bad relationship." He looked directly at her. "This is fraud." The word landed heavily. "Fraud," she whispered. "Yes." He leaned forward. "He gained your trust, influenced your financial decisions, obtained legal access under questionable circumstances, then transferred assets and disappeared." Ashley swallowed. "So what happens now?" David didn't rush his answer. "We act. Simple. Clear. Action." "What kind of action?" I asked. "First," he said, "we document everything." Ashley nodded. "We already started that." "Good. That's critical." He looked at her again. "Second, we report this immediately." "To the police?" she asked. "To multiple agencies," he corrected. "Local law enforcement, financial regulators, and possibly federal authorities, depending on how far this goes." Her eyes widened slightly. "This is bigger than I thought," she admitted. "Yes," he said. "But that also means there are systems in place to deal with it." That mattered. Because for the first time, this didn't feel like something she had to solve alone. "What about the money?" she asked quietly. David paused. "Some of it may be recoverable." Hope flickered in her eyes. "Some," she repeated. "Yes. It depends on where it went, how quickly we act, and how well we can trace it." I leaned forward. "And if we can't?" He didn't avoid the question. "Then we focus on rebuilding." Ashley looked down again. Her shoulders tightened. I placed my hand gently over hers. We'll get through it, I said softly. She nodded, but I could tell she was still carrying something deeper than money. What about the documents, she asked suddenly. The ones I signed? David held out his hand. May I? She passed them over. He read carefully, slowly, line by line. The room was silent except for the faint sound of paper shifting.
Finally, he looked up.
These are aggressive. My stomach tightened. What does that mean?
It means he structured this very carefully, David explained. There are clauses here that give him significant control.
Ashley's face went pale again.
So it's my fault? No, he said firmly. She looked at him. What? It's not your fault, he repeated.
I signed them. Yes, but under influence. She shook her head. I should have known. David leaned forward slightly.
Let me ask you something, he said.
She hesitated.
Okay. Did he explain these documents clearly? No. Did he pressure you to sign quickly? Yes. Did he present it as something necessary for your shared success? Yes. He nodded. That's coercion. Ashley blinked. Coercion, yes. Subtle, but real. She looked at me, then back at him. So, I'm not just stupid. The vulnerability in that question broke something inside me. No, David said firmly. You were manipulated. The room went quiet again. But this time, it felt different, like a weight had shifted. Not completely gone, but moved, reframed. I've been blaming myself for days, she admitted softly. That's normal, he said, but it's not accurate. I squeezed her hand, and for the first time, she didn't pull away from that truth. What do we do next? She asked. David smiled slightly. We build a case. There it was. Not just recovery, not just survival, justice. We trace the transactions, he continued. We identify where the money went. We involve the right authorities. And we make it very difficult for him to disappear. Ashley straightened slightly in her chair. He thought I wouldn't fight back. David nodded. People like him often assume that. I looked at Ashley, and I saw it. Not the fear, not the shame, something else, something stronger. Resolve. He doesn't know me? She said quietly. I smiled. No, I said. He really doesn't. David gathered the documents. He'll start the process today, he said. In the meantime, I want you both to focus on stability. Stability? No, I said. He really doesn't. David gathered the documents. He'll start the process today, he said. In the meantime, I want you both to focus on stability. Stability? Ashley asked. Yes. Rest. Food. Clear thinking. You're no use to yourself for this case if you're running on fear. She nodded slowly. That made sense. We stood up to leave. But before we did, Ashley hesitated. Can I ask one more thing? Of course, David replied. She looked at him carefully. Do people recover from this? He didn't hesitate. Yes. She swallowed. Fully. He paused, then said something that stayed with me, not exactly as they were before. Her face fell slightly. But sometimes, he continued, they recover stronger. That mattered. Because this wasn't about going back. It was about moving forward. Different. Wiser. Stronger. We walked out of the office together. Ashley was quieter than before, but not broken, not lost, just thinking. As we stepped onto the street, she turned to me. Mom. Yes,
I'm glad you came. The words were simple, but they meant everything. I smiled gently. I wasn't going to stay away. She nodded, and for the first time there was no distance in her eyes. Just something new, something real, something we hadn't had in a long time. Trust. That evening felt different. Not lighter, not easier, but clearer. For the first time since I arrived, Ashley wasn't drowning in panic. She was thinking, processing, and that mattered. We sat at her kitchen table again, the same place where I had found her surrounded by chaos just a day earlier. Now the papers were stacked neatly, organized, not solved, but faced. Ashley stared at the documents for a long moment, then leaned back and exhaled slowly. I can't believe I let it get this far, she said quietly. I didn't rush to answer, because this wasn't a moment for correction. It was a moment for truth. You didn't let it happen, I said gently. She shook her head. No, I did. I watched her carefully. This wasn't self-destruction. It was reflection, and there's a difference. I ignored things, she continued. Red flags, doubts, that voice in my head telling me something wasn't right. She looked up at me. Do you know when I first felt it? When I asked softly. The first time he told me not to tell you about an investment. My chest tightened. What did he say? That you wouldn't understand, she replied. That you'd overreact. That you'd make it harder for me to grow. I closed my eyes briefly. That one sentence was more dangerous than anything else. He separated you from me, I said quietly. Yes, and it worked. She nodded. I believed him. There was no anger in her voice, just honesty. I thought maybe he was right, she added. That you would overreact, that you wouldn't trust me. That hurt. Not because she was wrong, but because she wasn't completely right either. I admitted. She blinked. You would have. Yes, I said honestly. Back then, I probably would have questioned everything. She looked at me carefully, and now I took a breath. Now I would have listened first. That landed between us. Simple, but powerful. She studied my face, like she was trying to understand who I had become. I wish we had talked like this before, she said softly. So do I. Silence followed, but it wasn't regret. It was awareness. I used to think I had to prove something to you, she admitted. What do you mean? That I could handle things on my own, she said. That I didn't need help. I nodded slowly. I know, and when things started going wrong, I doubled down, she continued, because I didn't want to admit I needed you. Her voice cracked slightly. That sounds familiar, I said. She looked at me. What? I did the same thing after your father died, I said quietly. She frowned. You did, I told myself. I had to handle everything, I explained. That I couldn't fall apart. That I couldn't ask for help. Her expression softened. I didn't know that. I didn't tell you. Why not? Because I thought being strong meant being alone. She stared at me, then nodded slowly. I think I learned that from you. That realization hung in the air. Not as blame, but as truth. And truth, even when it hurts, is where healing starts. I'm sorry, I said quietly. She shook her head. No, I understand now.
We sat there for a moment, both processing the weight of that. Then she asked something I didn't expect. Do you regret it? What? The way you raised me. I didn't answer right away, because that question deserved honesty. I regret parts of it, I said finally. She nodded. So do I. That made me smile slightly, because it meant she wasn't just looking backward, she was learning. I don't regret loving you, I added. She looked up. I never did, I continued. I just wish I had known how to love you without controlling you. Her eyes filled slightly. I wish I had known how to let you in without feeling like I was losing control, she replied. There it was, the balance we had both missed. Love without control, independence without isolation. We didn't have it before, but maybe we could build it now. I don't want to go back to how things were, she said suddenly. I nodded. Neither do I. I want something different. Me too. She hesitated, then asked quietly, Do you think we can do that? I looked at her. Really looked at her. Not as a child, not as someone I needed to protect, but as a woman trying to rebuild herself. Yes, I said. Why? Because we're finally being honest. That was something we had never done before, not completely, not like this. She let out a small breath. I'm scared, she admitted. I know, not just about the money. What else? Everything she said, starting over, facing people, going back to work. I nodded. That's normal. What if I can't fix this? You don't have to fix everything at once, I said. She looked at me. Then what do I do? Start small. Small? Yes, I said, one step at a time. She frowned slightly. That sounds simple. It is. I smiled. That's why it works. She thought about that, then nodded slowly. Okay. Another pause. Then she said something that changed everything. Can I ask you something else? Of course. She hesitated. Then, will you stay? The question was quiet, almost afraid, but it meant more than anything she had said before. Yes, I answered immediately. For how long? As long as you need. Her eyes filled again, but she didn't look away. Thank you. I reached across the table and took her hand. You don't have to do this alone anymore. She squeezed my hand back. I don't want to. And that was the real change. Not the lawyer, not the case, not the plan. This, the moment she chose not to be alone. We sat there for a while longer, talking. Not about the past, not about the damage, but about what came next. Small things, simple things, meals, appointments, rest, life. Because that's what rebuilding looks like. Not dramatic, not instant, just steady. And as I watched her that night, I realized something. She hadn't just lost everything. She had lost the illusion that she had to handle everything by herself. And in its place, something better was beginning. Trust. Not perfect, not complete, but real. And this time, we were building it together. The days that followed didn't feel dramatic. There were no sudden victories, no miracle phone calls saying everything had been recovered. Instead, there was something quieter. Work. Real steady work. And for the first time in a long time, Ashley showed up for it.
Every morning we sat together at the kitchen table. Coffee, notebooks, documents. We built structure where there had been chaos. "What's first today?" she asked one morning. Her voice still carried traces of exhaustion, but it was stronger. "Emails," I said. "Follow-ups with David." She nodded.
Okay. She opened her laptop, hesitated for a second, then started typing. I watched her carefully. Because this part mattered. Not just the legal process, not just the recovery, but her ability to face what had happened without collapsing. "You're doing well," I said softly. She didn't look up. "I don't feel like I am." "That's normal." She paused, then glanced at me. "I still feel like I'm pretending." "Pretending what?" "That I'm okay." I leaned back slightly. "You don't have to be okay yet." She blinked. "I don't know," I said. "You just have to keep moving." She considered that, then nodded slowly. "I can do that." And she did. That same afternoon, she took another step, one that scared her more than anything else. "I need to go back," she said suddenly. "Back where work." I studied her face. She was nervous, but there was something else too. Determination. "Are you ready?" I asked. She hesitated. "No." "Then why go?" "Because if I wait until I feel ready, I might never go." That answer told me everything I needed to know. "Okay," I said. Her eyes widened slightly. "You think I should—" "I think you should do what you just said," I replied. "Move forward, even if it's uncomfortable." She took a deep breath. "Will you come with me?" The question was quiet, careful. "Yes," I said immediately. Relief washed over her face. "Okay." The next morning, we stood outside her office building, the same place where just weeks ago she had been walking in confidently with Ryan by her side. Now it was just her and me. She stared at the entrance for a long moment. Her hand tightened around her bag. "I don't know if I can do this," she whispered. I stepped closer. "You don't have to do everything today." She nodded. "Just walk in." She looked at me. "What if people judge me?" "They might." Her eyes widened. "That's not helpful. It's honest," I said gently. "But it doesn't define you." She swallowed. What you do next?" She held my gaze for a moment. Then she nodded and stepped forward. We walked in together. The lobby felt the same, but everything else felt different. People glanced at her, some curious, some concerned, some unsure what to say. Ashley noticed. Of course she did, but she didn't stop. She kept walking, straight to the elevator. Inside, the silence was heavy. "You're doing great," I said quietly. She nodded, but didn't speak. When the doors opened, everything slowed down. Her office, her space, her reality. She stepped out, and the moment she did, someone called her name. "Ashley." We both turned. Megan, the coworker who had called me. Relief flooded her face. "Oh my God, you're okay." Ashley managed a small smile. "I'm getting there." Megan stepped closer, then hesitated slightly when she saw me. "And this is my mom," Ashley said. There was no hesitation in her voice, no discomfort, just clarity. Megan smiled warmly. "Hi." "Hi," I replied. "I'm really glad you're here," she said to Ashley. That mattered, more than she probably realized. "Me too," Ashley said quietly. They stood there for a moment. Then Megan added, "If you need anything at all, I'm here." Ashley nodded. "Thank you." And just like that, a small piece of her world began to rebuild. Connection, not isolation. We walked further into the office. Ashley's desk was exactly how she left it, organized, precise, controlled. But now it looked different, not like a place of power, but a place she had to reclaim. She sat down slowly, ran her fingers over the surface. This used to feel like everything she said softly. And now, she looked up at me. Now it feels like just part of my life. I smiled. "That's a good thing." She nodded. "I think so too." She turned on her computer. The screen lit up. Emails flooded in. Missed meetings, messages, reality. She took a deep breath, then started. One message at a time. One response at a time. No rushing. No panic. Just steady. I watched her for a while, then stepped back slightly, because this part she had to do herself. After about an hour, she turned to me. "I'm okay," she said. I raised an eyebrow. "Really?" She smiled faintly. "No, but I'm better." That was enough. "Do you want me to stay?" I asked. She shook her head. "I think I need to do this." I nodded. "Okay." She hesitated, then reached out and took my hand. "Thank you." "For what?" "For not leaving." I squeezed her hand gently. "I told you I wouldn't." She nodded, then let go, and turned back to her work. Not alone, not lost, just rebuilding. As I walked out of that office, something inside me settled. Not relief, not yet, but certainty. She was going to be okay. Not because everything was fixed, not because the damage was undone, but because she had changed. She wasn't running anymore. She wasn't hiding. She wasn't pretending she didn't need anyone. She was facing it, step by step. And for the first time in a long time, she wasn't doing it alone. I thought the hardest part was behind us. I was wrong, because healing doesn't move in a straight line. Just when you think things are stabilizing, life reminds you how fragile everything still is. It started with a phone call. Early morning. Too early. I remember looking at the screen confused by the number, then answering anyway. "Hello? Is this Patricia Lawson?" "Yes, this is Dr. Harris from Riverside Clinic." My heart dropped instantly. "Is everything okay?" There was a pause. And in that pause, I already knew the answer. "We have Ashley here." The world around me went quiet. "What happened?" "She came in last night. Chest pain, severe anxiety symptoms. We wanted to keep her for observation." My grip tightened on the phone. "Is she okay?" "She's stable." Stable. That word again. The kind that doesn't mean safe, just not worse. "I'm on my way," I said. I didn't think, didn't hesitate, just moved. The hospital wasn't far, but the drive felt endless. Every red light, every second, too slow, too late. When I finally got there, I rushed through the doors, barely hearing the receptionist as she directed me upstairs. Room 312. I'll never forget that number. I pushed the door open gently, and there she was. Ashley, lying in a hospital bed, eyes closed, too still. My chest tightened. Ashley. Her eyes opened slowly, and when she saw me, she smiled, a small, tired smile. "Hey, Mom." I walked to her side immediately. "What happened?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. She shrugged slightly. I don't know, I just couldn't breathe. The words hit me hard. Because I knew that feeling. Not physically. But emotionally. I thought I was okay. She shrugged slightly. I don't know, I just couldn't breathe. The words hit me hard. Because I knew that feeling. Not physically. But emotionally. I thought I was okay. She continued softly. I thought I was handling it. I took her hand. You are. She shook her head. No, I was just pushing through. That was the truth, and it was a dangerous one. You don't have to push through everything, I said gently. I didn't want to fall apart again. I swallowed. Falling apart isn't failure. She looked at me. It feels like it. I sat down beside her. No, I said quietly. It feels like that because you've been taught to be strong in the wrong way. She frowned slightly. What do you mean? I mean you think strength is never breaking, I explained. She didn't answer. Because she knew. But real strength, I continued, is knowing when you need to stop and let someone help you. Her eyes filled slightly. I don't know how to do that. I squeezed her hand. Well, learn. Together. The doctor came in shortly after. Explained everything. Panic attack, he said. Severe stress response. Her body just shut down for a moment. Ashley looked embarrassed. I thought it was something worse. It felt worse, he replied calmly. But physically, she's okay. I nodded. But she needs rest. Of course, I said. And support. I glanced at Ashley. I'm not going anywhere. He smiled slightly. Good. After he left the room, fell quiet again. Ashley stared at the ceiling. I hate this, she said. What? Feeling like I'm not in control. I understood that. Too well. You don't have to control everything, I said. That's easy for you to say. No, I replied. It's not. She turned her head to look at me. I spent years trying to control everything after your father died, I continued. And it nearly broke me. Her expression softened. I didn't know that. I didn't let you see it. Why? Because I thought if I wasn't strong, everything would fall apart. She blinked. That sounds familiar. It should, I said gently. You learned it from me. That truth didn't feel like blame anymore. It felt like understanding. So, what do we do now? She asked quietly. I leaned back slightly. We slow down. She frowned. That's it. That's everything. She looked unconvinced. I have work. The case. Everything. And none of that matters if you burn out. I interrupted softly. She went quiet. Your body is telling you something, I continued. You need to listen. She continued. You need to listen. She stared at her hands. I don't like slowing down. I know. It makes me feel weak. It doesn't, I said. It makes you aware. That was a different kind of strength. One she hadn't learned yet. But she could. Will you stay at her hands? I don't like slowing down. I know. It makes me feel weak. It doesn't, I said. It makes you aware. That was a different kind of strength. One she hadn't learned yet. But she could. Will you stay? She asked again. The same question, but this time it carried a different weight. Yes, I said. She nodded, then closed her eyes again. Not in exhaustion, but in relief. And I stayed there, sitting beside her, watching her breathe, making sure she didn't have to face even that alone. Hours passed, quietly, steadily, and something shifted. Not dramatically, not visibly, but deeply. Because this wasn't just about recovery anymore. It was about balance.
about learning a new way to live, a way that didn't require her to prove she didn't need anyone, a way that allowed her to be strong and still lean on someone when she needed to. As I sat there, I realized something. The hardest part of being a mother isn't protecting your child from everything. It's knowing when to step in and when to simply stay. This time, I wasn't trying to control anything. I wasn't trying to fix everything. I was just there. And for the first time, that was exactly what she needed. Recovery doesn't arrive all at once. It doesn't knock on your door and say, everything is fixed now. It shows up quietly, in small moments, in choices, in the way someone looks at you differently than before. A few weeks after the hospital, Ashley and I were sitting on a park bench just outside her apartment. It was one of those rare, calm afternoons. No phone calls, no urgent emails, no bad news, just space. She leaned back, closing her eyes briefly, letting the sun hit her face. "I forgot what this felt like," she said. "What?" "Not being in survival mode." I smiled slightly. "It's a good feeling." She nodded. "Yeah, it is." We sat in silence for a moment, the kind that doesn't need to be filled. Then she spoke again. "David called this morning." I turned toward her. "What did he say?" "They found something," she replied. My heart lifted slightly. "What kind of something?" "A trace," she said. "Some of the transfers." I exhaled slowly. "That's good." "It's not everything," she added quickly, "but it's a start." A start. That's all we needed. "How do you feel about that?" I asked. She thought for a moment. "Honestly, it's not everything," she added quickly, "but it's a start. A start. That's all we needed." "How do you feel about that?" I asked. She thought for a moment. "Honestly, always." "I thought I'd feel relieved," she said. "But I don't." "What do you feel?" She looked out at the street. Calm. That surprised me. Calm? "Yeah," she nodded. "Because for the first time, it doesn't feel like my whole life depends on it." I studied her face. She meant that. "I used to think everything I built was everything I was." She continued. "My job, my money, my success." And now, she turned to me. "Now I know I'm still here without it." That was the real recovery. Not the money, not the case. Her, finding herself again. "You're stronger than you think," I said. She smiled faintly. "I'm starting to believe that." Another pause. Then she said something I had been waiting for. "I've been thinking about what I said to you." My chest tightened slightly. "What do you mean?" She took a breath. "That night in the kitchen?" I didn't interrupt. "I said I didn't need a mother." She continued softly. The words still carried weight. Even now. "I remember," I said. She nodded. "I thought I meant it. And now." She looked down at her hands. "I think I was trying to convince myself." That made sense. "I didn't want to need anyone," she added, "because needing someone felt like losing control." I reached over and gently took her hand. "And now?" She looked at me. Her eyes were steady, clear. I was wrong. The words were simple, but they carried everything. "I thought I didn't need a mother," she said slowly. My heart started to beat faster. But I was wrong. There it was, the full circle. Not just an apology, a realization, a truth. I felt my eyes fill slightly. Not with sadness, but something deeper. Relief. Healing. "I don't need you because I'm weak," she continued. I listened carefully. "I need you because..." You're part of me. That was something she had never said before. Not like that, not this clearly. I don't want to push you away anymore, she added. You don't have to. I know. She squeezed my hand. But I also don't want to lose myself again. I smiled. And you won't. How do you know? Because now you understand the difference. She tilted her head slightly. Between what? Being independent and being alone. That was the line she had crossed before. The one she now saw clearly. I think I do, she said. We sat there quietly, letting that truth settle between us. Not heavy, not painful, just real. After a while, she leaned her head gently against my shoulder. Something she hadn't done since she was a child. I didn't move, didn't speak, just let it happen. Because some moments don't need words. I'm glad you didn't give up on me, she whispered. I looked down at her. I never would. Even when I pushed you away, especially then. She let out a small breath. Why I thought about that for a breath. Why I thought about that for a moment. Because the answer mattered. Because being your mother doesn't depend on whether you need me or not. She looked up at me. It doesn't. No, I said. It's something I am, not something you have to earn. Moment. Because the answer mattered. Because being your mother doesn't depend on whether you need me or not. She looked up at me. It doesn't. No, I said. It's something I am, not something you have to earn. Her eyes softened. I didn't understand that before. You do now. She nodded, and that was enough. We stayed there until the sun started to dip lower in the sky. The city moving around us, busy, unpredictable, alive, just like life, just like everything we had been through. Ready to go? I asked. She smiled. Yeah. We stood up together, and as we walked back toward her apartment, I realized something. This wasn't the end of our story. It wasn't a perfect ending. It wasn't a clean resolution. It was something better, a new beginning, built on truth, on understanding, on the kind of love that doesn't control and doesn't disappear. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like I had lost my daughter. I felt like I had found her again. After everything that happened, I realized something I wish I had understood much earlier in life. Love is not control, and independence is not isolation. As parents, especially mothers, we often believe that loving someone means protecting them from every mistake. We hold on tighter when we feel them slipping away. We question, we guide, we interfere because we're afraid of losing them, afraid of seeing them hurt. But sometimes, the tighter we hold, the further they run. And as children, even grown adults, we often believe that strength means doing everything alone, that needing someone is a weakness, that asking for help somehow makes us less capable. But life has a way of proving otherwise. Because the truth is, no one gets through life alone. Not successfully, not peacefully, not completely. Real strength is knowing when to stand on your own and when to reach for someone who loves you. And real love is being there when they finally do. Not to say, I told you so. Not to take control again, but simply to say, I'm here. No conditions, no judgment, just here. If this story touched your heart, I'd love to hear from you. Have you ever had someone you love push you away? only to come back when life got hard? Or maybe you've been the one who had to learn the hard way that you couldn't do everything alone. Tell me your story in the comments. And don't forget to share where you're watching from and what time it is there. I read every single one. If you believe in second chances, healing, and the power of family, please like and subscribe so we can keep sharing stories that matter. Because sometimes, the story you hear here might be the one you needed most.